Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and I wanted to get some Father's Day cards made. I have friends that need cards to send out and just realized Father's Day is in a week. So I pulled out the Simon Says Stamp Mom and Dad Icons stamp set. And I have some scraps of some Nina Solar White 80-pound cardstock, which is Copic friendly. And I'm stamping the images I want to use with Simon Says Stamp, their Intense Black ink, which is also Copic friendly. So once I stamped out everything I wanted to use, I'm super sped up this portion of it, but I'm just coloring everything in with my Copic markers, really simple coloring. I decided for the letters to do cool grays, and this time starting from my lightest to darkest, just to give them a little bit of dimension. So I started with my C4, just laid down a quick little layer of that, and then adding in a little bit of depth here with the C6. And then I'm going to blend these out again with the C4 so you don't have all these little harsh lines. And sorry, my camera's like starting to focus on my hand instead of the actual coloring. And being me when I'm creating, actually most of the time, I don't look at my viewfinder on my camera to make sure that things are in focus. Anyway, blended everything out, and then I went in with my C8, which is my darkest, and just went right against kind of the edges here. It just gives it that extra bit of pop and dimension. So added that, and then I ended up blending that out again, just a little bit more with the C6 and the C4, just again, so there wasn't such harsh little lines, and it pulled everything in together. And then there were parts that I did kind of go outside the edges, because I wasn't paying enough attention, but I just took my colorless blender later and lightly went back against that to push it deeper into the cardstock to clean it all up. So once I did those, I'm going to go on and start with these little beer mugs. So I started off with Y15 for these, and I left the handle. Even though there wasn't a line there, it's kind of habit for me to like fill in the whole area within the lines, but obviously the handle wouldn't have beer in it unless it was that type of mug. Anyway, started out with Y15, added some Y17, and then I went in with a bit of the YR23 just to deepen it, and then blended everything out with the Y15. And then I took BG000 to do the handles, and I took Y11 just to add a tiny bit to the foam, just to give it, again, that little bit of extra something. Really simple. And then finally, for my little barbecue grills here, I'm using R24, R27, and R29. And I actually only needed 2, not 3. I wasn't really paying attention when I was doing the math for these, but for the beer ones, I wanted 2 for the inside. For the grill ones, I only need 1. So kind of accidentally colored next to them, but it was all good. So went in with all 3 shades of red, and then after I'd added the darkest, I quickly blended that out with the R24. And then I took C8 and just quickly went along the top, and that finished the Copic coloring. Really simple, really easy. Once all the coloring was done, I have the coordinating die set for the Mom and Dad Icons set. So I pulled out the coordinating dies, and I'm just taping them into place with little bits of washi tape, and then I run these through my machine multiple times to get everything die cut. So taping them into place, just making sure they're lined up, and then having that tape there just keeps them from shifting when you run it through the machine, because that's the last thing I want after I've done all this coloring, is for the dies to move when you roll the machine through and have a big old mess. So I did that, and then I also die cut some Simon Says cardstock. I did Schoolhouse Red and Sunshine cardstock, and I die cut them with one of the dies from the Simon Says Stitched Rectangle set. And then on the Schoolhouse Red, I'm stamping the grill again with Schoolhouse Red ink. And I did the same thing on the Sunshine cardstock with Sunshine ink. I stamped the beer bug all around the edges. I didn't bother with the center because you're not going to see it, because I also die cut some steel gray cardstock with the same Stitch Rectangle set. And then I die cut some white cardstock with slightly smaller Stitch Rectangle. So I've got all my layers die cut. I did all the die cutting at once just to get it done. And then on these white rectangles, I wanted to stamp a sentiment. And I had forgot until after I did this first one that I have the Misty Creative Corners die set, which makes my life so much easier. I had lined this up not against any of the edges because I wasn't sure exactly where I was going to stamp the sentiment at first. And then decided to ink it up and stamp it where I'm showing now. And rather than reline everything up, I grabbed the little creative corner here that's all magnetic, lined that up against the edge of that die cut so that I can pull it out, line up the second die cut, and I could do this over and over again if I wanted to, so it saves me the time and effort. I keep these in my larger MISTI, which I don't use as often, so yeah, it took me a minute to remember. It's like, oh yeah, I bought these for a reason. They're really handy when you remember you have them. So stamped that Happy Father's Day sentiment onto those white pieces. And then I used foam tape to adhere that to the gray die cut rectangle. And then I'm using my Nouveau liquid adhesive here to adhere that to the red and then to the yellow card base. So I've got kind of all my layers adhered, and then I can get to adhering the letters and a little icon there to make the word Dad. I was going to adhere them flat, but then decided to pop them up with foam tape because I actually liked how that looked better. So I adhered both of the D's first because it's easier to center everything when the outside and the inside letter is adhered first. So I adhered the first letter and then kind of eyeballed it and got the second letter into place. And then that way I can add my foam tape to my little icon and adhere that, and everything is like, you know, spaced properly and centered and all that fun stuff. So got that adhered and then did the same thing with the little beer mug one and then adhered that onto the fun little pattern background I had created. So once I'm done with both of these, I want to do both of the card bases. So I just had white cardstock that I had cut down and got everything lined up again in my MISTI, this time turning it sideways so that I can stamp the sentiment. So lined it up, picked it up with the lid of my MISTI, that way I can ink it up and stamp it more than once, which I needed to do because I didn't stamp it perfectly. So stamped the one sentiment and then got the second card base in so I can stamp the second sentiment because I'm using different ones for each of the cards. So get everything kind of lined up here. I always use the lid, like the grid line on my lid, to make sure I've got everything kind of centered, and then I can ink it up more than once and stamp it onto the inside of the card here. So once I've got my sentiments stamped on the inside of the card, I can get to finishing these cards. They're really simple, just, you know, simple, masculine, no embellishments. Like sometimes I do like to add, you know, some baker's twine or different things, but this time I decided to keep it fairly simple. So I adhered the card front to the card, and then that second little grill there, I adhered right above the sentiment. And I did the same thing with the second card, but this time I adhered both of the little beer mugs. Again, if I'd been thinking, I should have used my mirror image stamp and stamped the beer mug so that it was the mirror image. I thought that would look, you know, cuter, but again, hindsight is 20/20. So they still look cute though. So I adhered both those to the inside of the card, and then I adhered my card front to the card base. And then as just a last little bit of embellishment I was thinking about, yeah, like baker's twine or my Tonic Nouveau drops, just different things I could add. But I was like, you know what? No, I think I'm going to keep it simple. But what I did pull out was my Irresistible Pico Embellisher, just the clear one. Making sure first, like I squeezed onto a little scrap there to make sure it was coming out and not bubbles. This is very similar to Glossy Accents, except it's a little bit runnier, I would say. It's thinner and runnier, which I like for certain things, like ones like this. It's got this fine tip little applicator on it. It's not as raised as Glossy Accents either. It just gives a nice, shiny, very slightly raised finish. If you want that really glossy, higher finish, that's where you would use Glossy Accents. But for this, it worked perfectly. Plus, this dries quicker. So I applied a really thin amount to just a center icon on both of these and then set them aside to dry. And the Pico Embellisher, like I said, it has a fine tip. It also has, there's like a little like wire in the lid that you just need to insert into that tip. And then that keeps it from getting clogged. I love this. I haven't used it in forever. I forgot I had them. But glad I pulled it out again. And yeah, that finished off these cards. So as always, I will have a link below the video to my blog post with links to all the supplies used, the Copic colors, all that info will be in the description box below and also on my blog. So check that out if you're interested. Thank you all so much for watching, subscribing, thumbs upping, and commenting on my videos. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye.